insecure in who we are.
Sure.
And so I think dealing with commitment issues, I think some of the things that why some certain men have problem with commitment issues is not being sure of themselves.
Sure.
Because we know men are defeated when they are, should I say, defeated in the area because their minds feel, I can't win in this situation.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
I think, but going back, if we can retract just a minute, you talked about the influence of television,
Yeah.
influence of media, which oftentimes define what commitment is, or highlights and encourages the lack thereof of being committed. And we have to realize that the media and the entertainment industry, that's their job, is to sell records, to sell movies, and to sell newspapers. And be it however they do that, that's what they're going to do. But a lot of times we have a tendency, because, especially from an African-American perspective, we have a tendency to look at more television than any race of people. So that means we are influenced, be it negatively, usually, or positively from television more than anyone. So yeah, the television, the media, that would be another influence. And then, of course, then just that male figure, you know. We can have the wrong male figure in our lives that can negatively influence
I mean,
us.
you right on that. You know, what one thing I do, because I try to stay in tune with this generation, and Deontay and I, we were listening on the radio, listening to these songs, and listening to some of the lyrics that go on the songs. There's I think a #1 song out by artist Lil Wayne right now. And he says, I wish I could sleep with every woman in the world.
Right.
So I like you. That's the #1 song right now. Before that, we was blaming on the alcohol.
Right.
Okay, so now all of these beats and all of this stuff is good. When we look at the messages they're sending, it's not even sending a message of commitment. It's sending a message of a free for all. And so when we send that message, we talk about commitment and the issues that we have. Well, let's look at some of those internal issues. Let's look at our second question, because it's going to be a real good segue into our second question. What causes a man, I think we kind of looked at it a little bit, what causes a man to want to walk away from most situations? What causes him? And let's look at some of these areas. What would cause a man to want to walk away from either A, his job, B, his family, 3, some dating relationship he's in, 4, his children? Okay. What or the next one would be some of his friends. What would make a man say, look, I know I'm here, I know I have this relationship, I know I have this job, I know I have this situation, but I don't feel like I want to commit to this any longer? What would make that man, what are some things that goes through a man's mind when he's trying to walk away? What are some things you've counseled on, or some brothers you've talked to?
Well, you know, like you said, you invited me on to keep it real.
Yeah, that's right.
And to keep from trying to over-spiritualizing it, and keep from trying to being over-philosophical, it's real simple. One, what causes you to walk away is 2 things. One, either something is drawing you or something is driving you.
Okay,
you know,
break that down.
Driving you meaning you're leaving something because there's too much pressure that's pushing you away.
Pressure.
Right, there's too much pressure that's pushing you away. You got it?
Yeah, I got you.
But on the drawing you, there's something that's enticing you to leave.
Okay.
You know? So driving. If you're talking about from a job, sometimes we have this idea in our minds about what this job is going to do.
Yeah.
And when that idea does not match reality, then there's disappointment, you know, there's frustration, and then there's pressure, you know.
Yeah.
And that, for example, can be one of the things that drives us away. Same thing with relationships. We have an idea of what this relationship is going to be like, but when reality and that relationship, that idea does not match, then there comes pressure from that.
And you hitting on the pressure, because I love how you said there's something that draws you or something that drives you.
Yes.
Because any situation, I always use the illustration, relationships and life are just like addition and subtraction. Either someone is adding to your life or they're taking away from your life.
Right.
And that's what men look at a situation, because we're kind of straight to the point. Okay, what's the point in me doing
bottom
this?
Line.
What's the bottom line? And if my bottom line isn't in my advantage, if it's not benefiting me, because naturally women are more naturally givers. Men are naturally more takers. Okay, we take. And when we look at that, if I'm not getting anything out of this, if I'm not benefiting some kind of way from this, many times we like, what am I? Let me give you an example. I've had situations where I've counseled men, and when we talk about this, and we'll deal with the women coming up in the next few weeks, because I always have to do that. Give a caveat, because sometimes we would think, well, what about the men? Right. I see they waving their finger now. Right. I don't care. No, but when we look at it, many times I have situations where you have this single man who now is interested in this single woman, but she has children, and they marry. And many times in the marital situation, the woman went in because the man had to gain the respect and gain the trust to be the father to those children, because she's had them for so long. And then maybe the outside influence, outside relationship with the children's natural father may be one where the wife and the ex-husband or ex-whatever have more responsibility for the children. And the man that now is in the relationship with this new woman, he feels many times, because she may say, this is a counseling session I've had in the past, these are my children.
Sure.
That's my son. That's mine. And then if he moves into that house, this is my house.
Right.
Okay? This is my stuff.
Right.
And after a while, brothers have come to the point where I feel like I'm the fourth child. Because the only thing I feel like I do is I go to work.
Right.
I make sure everything is cleaned up.
Right.
And then I get fussed at with stuff I didn't do. and so you're like, this is not conducive. I wanted a relationship, and I don't feel like an adult. Yeah. And so we start talking about that pressure. The pressure, because you know, like I do, men are performance oriented.
Big time.
When you ask a man civil questions, here's some things you always recognize. Women usually talk about what kind of stuff when they get together? A group of women usually talk about what?
Relationships,
whatever.
Domestic kind of things.
Okay. And what do men usually talk about?
They talk about sports. They talk about work.
Yeah.
It's performance related, and sometimes sex.
When women talk about children, they talk about how they look. They talk about all this other stuff. Men talk about their children. They talk about how fast they ran.
Right.
When men have conversations, you go to a barbershop and go to a beauty salon. When men are in the barbershop, we're bragging about how much we could bench press 35 years ago. We talk about how fast we could run. We still talk about what happened in high school.
Or we're living vicariously through our children.
Exactly, because we are performance oriented. Right. And so looking at that question, in relationships, what are some areas, but I kind of gave some examples, what are some areas in relationships where men, that pressure again a second ago to perform would make a man want to walk away from
one thing, the word talks about, when we're talking about marriage, the word talks about that husbands ought to love their wives, and wives ought to obey and or respect their husbands. Mm-hmm. That's huge. That's a huge indicator as far as where some of the pressure comes from. Okay. Because men, for the most part, high on their scale is respect. Yeah. If you want to mess up with me, disrespect me.
Disrespect me.
If you want to mess up, meaning, for example, I can receive all kind of accolades on my job, in the community, and not get those kind of accolades at home, and it'll drive me crazy.
Wow.
And the flip side.
What does that do? What does that do to you when you don't get that at home and you get it everywhere else? What does that make you feel like?
It demeans you. It demeans you. It hurts your feelings. You feel less than. Mm-hmm. So then, therefore, oftentimes you can get that kind of respect at home, though, mm-hmm. and be disrespected everywhere else, and you can deal with it.
Is that right?
But let the script flip, where you get all that stuff out in society and don't get it at the crib, and then therefore it'll drive a man crazy.
Well, let's look at that, because you flip the script. Now, if I'm not getting that nurturing at home, but I'm getting everywhere else over an extended period of time.
Sure.
Okay. What does that make me vulnerable to as a man? Because we're talking about commitment. What does it make me vulnerable?